We're here today with Lee Grasmeyer. He's a candidate for sheriff in Muskegon County. Lee, tell me why you're running for sheriff in Muskegon County and what your background and qualifications are.
I'm running for the office of sheriff simply because, one, I was prompted, and I believe that faith guides me in a lot of my decisions. But two, I think we're ready for a change. Muskegon County has had some disappointing things happen, I think, within the current term or administration, and I would like to see that this stuff goes back, because the job is totally about your integrity, morals, and etc. As far as leading the people. So, I mean, that's truly my goal, is bring that back to the community.
What do you see as the problems in the sheriff's department, if any?
Well, right now everyone's talking about the jail, obviously. That's a huge topic. Second, I think it's leadership at this point, because if you don't lead from the front, you tend to have that same leadership you give at the top fall to the bottom. And that reflects on how your services are within the community. So my biggest concern is leadership in the county sheriff's position.
Tell me about the jail. Do we need a new jail? Do we need a remodeled jail? What's your views on that?
Well, I'm not for or against the jail, just so it's out there, until I go in there and see what is actually the case. The bottom line is, if we need a new jail, then we'll do it. But if we have been poor stewards of what we've been given, let it go to this state of condition, we're not doing ourselves any justice by building a new one when we still have that same jail that, one, has to be cleaned up, and in 20 years we have the same issue if we're not taking care of what we have. And a lot of that starts is, what are we doing? So, I mean, and I've been told it's horrible in there. I'm not going to look at it, because the bottom line is I want to go in there with a fresh view, open-minded, and know that, if I have to spend taxpayer money on a jail, it'll be because it needs to be a new jail, not because we didn't take care of what we had. So,
the sheriff has instituted a policy of postcards to communicate with the inmates in the jail, and he's not allowing any letters be sent from the families of the inmates to them, although he does allow legal correspondence in an envelope letter type format.
Right.
Would you reinstitute the former policy that's been in place for decades of letting inmates receive letters from their loved ones, friends, and family members?
I would for sure have letters coming in, and I'll qualify that simply because some people don't know what it's like to wait on a letter, to receive a letter. I've been overseas in the military and know what mail call means. And for me to get a postcard versus a letter, you don't get the same out of that card. Where if you look at the letter, that's really one of the first steps to rehabilitation. They need to know what they're missing, and if we're not allowing them to get heartfelt messages from their family members or whoever, then are we really doing our part to help them get back on the right road? I mean, it's important that we realize that, and you don't put your heartfelt messages on a postcard. You don't have room. It's more, you could do up a stamp the card, how's it going, and send multiple cards. But the important thing is for us to be aware that we need to be there for them as much as they need to be punished. We need to make sure we work to recover what we can of them, or help put them back on the right road.
The sheriff has a policy in the jail where it's relatively open and free for any officer to bring somebody into the jail that they want to for when they arrest them for something. Now, considering the fact that the jail has a tendency to get filled up for various reasons beyond the sheriff's control, would it be possible to institute a policy where if the person's arrested for, say, suspended license, possession of marijuana, minor offenses where they're not a clear and present danger to the community, that the officers from whatever department they're from, would they be instructed to issue that person an appearance ticket rather than lodging them in jail?
Yeah, I mean, I would think, when I was in the sheriff's department, our goal, if we did catch them with marijuana, what have you, driving on a suspended license, now this is not a habitual offender. This is somebody that's, got caught driving on a suspended license, first offense. We would let them go on a summons that they appear in court. Now, if we find out they don't show up for court, obviously we have to take different actions at that point, and they might not be the ones let go again upon being stopped again. That's where we get that habitual offender thing going. But I don't want the jails crowded on, minor offenses, misdemeanor offenses, stuff like that. I want them to know they're in trouble. You issue a summons, you appear in court. If you appear in court, all is good. You don't have to go to jail. I can't see bringing and filling the jail with, I guess, misdemeanor offenses of marijuana. If it's your distribution charge will be higher. So, if it's just a personal use summons, I'm going to say let them on their own recognizance. Let them go on that sign and give them an appearance date.
Talk about your law enforcement background.
Well, I started out in the Marine Corps with base safety and kind of transitioned into the Fauquier County Sheriff's Office. And I began working there in the jail. So that kind of gave me a flavor of why I wanted to be on the road. The jails are fun, but it's still a bunch of walls you look at, same thing. I'm not appealed to working in the jail. That's not where I'd want to be. So I ended up on the road. I worked the road I was jail and road for about 4 years. And my goal was to transition to Michigan as a state trooper. And that was back in '98, if I remember right. Governor Engler froze hiring for the state police. So I was fortunate enough to come back and think I have something going for myself to find out that, hiring's froze and, thanks for your effort. But I was back here then and I had to make different changes. So then I ventured out I've got my degree in criminal justice. I also went through the academy. So, I have the resume for doing it. And I own my own security company, that keeps me in the mix of doing law enforcement activities. So.
How do you think the Sheriff's Department should be changed, modified? You get in office, what do you do different than what's being done now?
Well, one, and I can't say this goes across the board, but I've heard it myself, where I want to make sure that every person in that office knows that people, no matter what stage of life you're in or where you come from, you're treated with respect. Bottom line, that's number one. Everyone should be treated equally across the board. Your goal as the sheriff is one, yes, you're administrator, but you enforce the laws. You don't make laws. So keep that in mind. Don't worry about whether you're Republican, Democrat, Tea Party, and know that your job is simply that, enforce. Don't make any. And, then we need to make sure we're training our people and giving them the tools to succeed, So, that would really be my number one goal, is to ensure we have the utmost of respect given to everybody, because we're public servants.
Sheriff's Road Patrol, is that adequate?
I might want to make changes to it. I have, as many have heard that we have sometimes areas not covered that should be covered, and we have townships paying for PINS officers, and if PINS officers off, we don't have coverage. I think that really needs to be looked at. What do we need to do is in bringing in different opportunities, with having officers available, so I would want to work on the road patrol coverage, see where we're at. I don't have the budget numbers and stuff to see exactly where everything's at, but I know that I would probably want to make some changes that I don't care what falls through the cracks. It won't be the service on the road. You need to be out there protecting the citizens.
The Sheriff's Marine Division, is that adequate?
I don't have a bunch of information on that. I've seen them out there, the Marine Division, so I would have to, I can't even make a guess. I would look at it and discern at that point whether or not we needed to build up on the Marine Division, or I wouldn't think we'd take away from it. A lot of that summer help we bring on anyway. So we do really well to help people out with, and it could be these officers that are looking for a job that keeps their certification active. So we target them and try and get multiple officers out that way at a lower rate. But it helps them where they get, whether it's part of an internship, where they're working with another deputy or what, but we take in just an array of opportunities.
We've got situations in this state where officers can retire at age 50 or age 55, still in great health, and a lot of them might want to stay on the job longer. Would you consider hiring some of these retired officers as part-time deputies to fill in the gaps for the road patrol, the jail, court services?
I would love it if they wanted to do stuff like that. I think that should be our target pool, is those that have been good officers for years and they're looking for something to help out with retirement. And I'm an advocate for that. Yeah.
What do you think the county relationship to the jail and the sheriff's office, road patrol, as far as funding is concerned? Is the sheriff getting the funds needed to do the job adequately from the county?
Since I don't have all the funds information available to me at this time, I can't really answer that. I mean, we might all have our different perceptions. I'm going to look at the budget and say, hey, we can make these adjustments here that make sense. But for me to give you a real quality answer, I'd want to sit and see what the budget is and then kind of discern as to what are these that we're doing here, and do we have to have these costs? Can I put it back here, or vice versa? And maybe I need to ask for more money. And it's really justifying as to why, so.
You said earlier that the sheriff's job is to enforce the law. But what about if you have a situation where you're going to force it equally across the board, but you're going to give more importance to serious crimes than minor crimes, right?
I think that you can't really judge what is a serious crime, what is a minor crime. I mean, your job is to enforce what the law says. I mean, I want to say that you can look at a gray area and say, let this go, it's no big deal, but that kind of sets you up for fail. When you start leaning towards, just don't worry about this is less important. I mean, when it comes to responding, if there's shooting taking place over here and we have, maybe a theft report that needs to be made, obviously you're going to take priority in different directions. But I don't think that you cut from the law because you don't want to waste your time on it. I mean, you need to be fair across the board.
We've got numerous police agencies in Muskegon County. Would it be more practical to have one police department under the control of the sheriff than the numerous police agencies that we have?
Well, I know we talked on this, and I think at this point, going into the office, I would want to first build the communication between all of us and make sure we all communicate, and then look at the opportunity of, I mean, does it make sense? Do the people want to see, one law enforcement agency, or actually it'd be three, because you're probably talking, you'd have your county police, the state police, and then your local Muskegon police. I mean, would it make sense? I mean, I know people won't care what color your uniform is when they show up. So, I mean, that's information you should probably take and really think about, Can we get more officers out there, not ever taking away from the amount of patrol out there, but you might actually, in fact, you will increase it if you were to, make some changes in the upper echelon as part of it. And with our communication building and with what we can do, both through the internet and our filing system centrally, I mean, everybody should be able to have one central hub that information goes to and is stored at and work together. And the less chiefs you have in anything, the easier it is to communicate. So
you think that we could streamline law enforcement in the county and probably give us more Indians and a few less chiefs?
Yes, I believe that. Yeah, if it is possible, and I think that if we really wanted to streamline things, that would be a way of saving money, because the people don't care about, like I said, the color of the car, the uniform, etc. They want to know that when they call somebody, there will be someone there, you know. But, you know, I think right now we need to, one, communicate, because right now I don't know if our communication is the best for all of us right now, and then make decisions down the road as to what we would venture to do.
Muskegon County law enforcement in general, what are some of its strengths and what are some of its weaknesses?
As far as the county, I think that you have you have opportunity right here. You have some good candidates that we want to keep as part of our law enforcement in the sheriff's department, and you know, and that's really the biggest strength. It's the people, but they have to be led and know what their leader expects. You know, so if they're not given the tools to succeed, they're probably not going to succeed in the manner which you would want. And it goes right along with the downfalls of it. Not having those tools and training and leadership is also going to set them back to where they can't be as productive or as much of an asset as what they really should be when they're out there on the road.
Now, when you filed to run, you filed no party affiliation. Mm-hmm. What caused you to do that instead of running as a Democrat in the primary or as a Republican?
Well, I'm going to tell you, and you know, I've told everybody this. You asked, so I'm going to tell you. And I was dropping my son off, and I'm a very busy guy. I wasn't thinking of sheriff, hadn't talked sheriff, nothing. And I was sitting, going through my head, I got all this stuff to do. After I dropped my son off, I started driving to work. And I had an overwhelming feeling. I said, "You can go run for sheriff." My first thought was, right, whatever, you know, continued about my day. Well, that feeling was so overpowering, you know. I had the belief God is talking to me. You're going to do this whether you like it or not. And it consumed me. So I was like, oh my gosh. I went and filed for sheriff. And my biggest fear, I go and tell my wife, not only do I have a brand new baby coming, I own a security company, you know, and I got 4 other kids, you know, and starting a gun store too, I'm now going to run for sheriff. So I was like, oh great, she's going to love this, you know. But I went home and talked to her, and this is definitely something that I should be doing. But he didn't make it easy on me. He wanted it to be hard. And I think anything you want that is worth getting is going to be hard. So he said, "You're going to run independent." And I was like, oh, he wants me to lose. That was my first thought. But, you know, I didn't think that. And I thought, man, I'm never going to be able to get 1,500 signatures. So I had to go out here and get all these signatures, which I thought was going to be just horrifying. And I did. And they came so easy. People were just, yeah, let's do this. It's a great idea. So, I mean, that's the true reason I'm running. It has nothing to do with, I thought at first, you know, I mean, I've heard all of the horror stories of the current leadership, but it wasn't something that I just sat and thought, I want to be the sheriff. It was something that was laid upon my heart that I needed to do. And so out of obedience, I'm moving forward with it.
So you're basically running for sheriff based on your internal thoughts, beliefs, what came to you, and it's not based on who the current incumbent is. It wouldn't have made any difference to you one way or the other.
Wouldn't have made a difference who it was, who I was running against. This is something that was prompted upon me, that this is your time and you need to be obedient in this. So here I am today talking with you, saying, you know.
What kind of response are you getting on the campaign trail when you're going door to door?
I tell you what, I have been so blessed with just meeting people, and people just great. I mean, I'm walking the street and they're just coming out, great idea. Why don't we no party affiliation before? Because a lot of people agree it makes sense. Why wouldn't we be no party affiliation? I mean, you don't want either party having control of putting your law enforcement officer in place. I mean, it's about the people. The people should put you into the office, and if you screw up, the people should put you out. Bottom line, if you run for sheriff, do it on your merits and what you're going to bring to the table, or don't do it. I mean, I don't think you should run party affiliated.
So essentially you're saying for the office of sheriff anyway, it shouldn't be Republican, Democrat, or any
Not
party.
at all. I think it should be like the judges, no party affiliation. You go out there on your merits. You know, you need to run and let people know who you are. Be transparent is kind of my thoughts to this. And you know, and when I say transparent, I went as far as saying, you know what, these are people I support on my website. And the reason it's good for people to see that is you start to see who I am, and I don't hide things. I hate it when someone might tell me, I really like you, but I can't endorse you publicly. Well, why not? You know, yes, I'm probably going to lose some votes because I support whoever, and someone might not. But I would hope it's something that people realize, that I want you to see who I am and how I vote. Know that I'm looking at people to do the job, to do a good job. And you can be assured I look into them and say, this is who I would want to lead me. And, you know, the decisions I make and that I've made for my family are the decisions that I would make for the county. You know, I look at it kind of this way, is I'm extending my family. I might be a family of 7. Now I'm going to add on roughly 172,000 different family members that are going to count on what decisions am I going to make to keep them safe and manage their money properly.
Does the state provide enough money for law enforcement?
You know, I don't know what they're kicking in, but I'd be after the grants and federal grants and all of that stuff. I mean, I would almost think that I'd want somebody constantly writing grants, trying to get me the grants. So, you know, what they're providing right now, I don't know. I would probably want more, just telling you now, because I'm about getting the stuff to take care of the people that work for me, and then also that would in turn take care of the citizens within the community. So I don't know exactly what enough could really be.
Well, is there ever enough money for law enforcement?
I'm going to say probably not, because it's always changing. I mean, people come up, criminals come up, high tech, different, you know, outdate us in a heartbeat. You know, they have funding that we probably don't always get to keep up with, you know, but, you know, we need to be a steward of what we have.
When you have a situation where there's crime that seems to be repetitive and the police try their best, but it doesn't seem to go away, what can be done about that? Is it more police? Is it better techniques? Is it, what's the solution?
Well, as we know, seeing policemen in the area is probably your biggest deterrent. I mean, so if it's an area that you know is having trouble, I think that having more of a presence is going to change. What it'll do is it'll change the location of that probably set activity you have going on there. So then your presence will have to just keep shifting with whatever crimes that you're believing are at the root cause of this. So, you know, I think always having as many officers on the street, working with the people, getting to know the people, is going to be your best attack on such situations.
How about white collar crime?
Same thing, with corporate crimes or et cetera, you know, I don't know how much of the white collar crimes the sheriff's department will get involved with you know, a lot of that's going to come through higher channels of investigations, but I mean, we wouldn't want to be tying ourselves up as much on more of an investigative background type situations. Well, we have detectives available for that, but I mean, our focus would be protecting the county and ensuring that, you know, we're out there doing our job as road patrol. Now, the divisions that have it, you know, we have our investigative detective divisions. We need to make sure they have the resources available, and what will help them is having the communication with other agencies such as FBI, CIA, you know, those different law enforcement agencies that can help and take some of the burden off us in investigating white collar crimes.
We have a number of unsolved homicides in Muskegon County. Should there be a detective or two, and maybe even hiring a retired detective to work on a contract basis to go ahead and do a little bit more, in fact, not a little bit more, a lot more investigation into solving some of these unsolved homicides?
I would love to see, I call it a cold case cold case detective. I would love to see us have a cold case detective that, I don't think if you do the crime, you should be ready to do the time. So I don't want to just let things go. I mean, I'd love to see an officer, you know, that is focusing on, you know, closure for families, really. You know, that's what you want to do, is not just drop them on the curb and say, unfounded, can't find any answers, sorry. You know, I mean, I would love to have a cold case officer.
Could that be expanded further than unsolved homicides? Because I know there's other unsolved crimes
Sure, I
out
mean, you
there.
can pass that on to other crimes that maybe haven't been investigated to the full extent of maybe, you know, what we would want. You know, so, I mean, really, you'd want to leave that up to the detective to review. As cases get closed, whether they be unfounded or what have you, have a detective that could review them, make a good judgment call, and just put the right person in that spot and say, hey, you know, let's put this aside and we'll look at it again. You know, so really get someone in with good discernment for the position.
I'm thinking because of the advent of DNA and other technologies.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said,
20, 30
technology has just grown, you know, so we need to capture that opportunity. And if there's people that haven't got closure, we need to make sure we don't just ignore the fact that we have now a lot of tools that can help bring people to justice.
How do we go ahead and take a look at society as a whole? And there's not too many people I've talked to that say it's it's not getting better, it's getting worse. And we have obviously a society keeps devolving, then law enforcement is all that much more important. How do we go ahead and try to prevent crime from happening to begin with, other than just more of a presence, other than just increasing road patrols by whatever percent you would do that, based on funds? But how do we go ahead and just prevent some of these crimes from even starting? Is that a role of law enforcement or society, or how does that?
I think law enforcement plays a part in that. I mean, there's something that I really appreciate and that I've seen happen in the department I worked in. We had one, was a school officer that goes to the schools, gets to know the kids, because right now I know it doesn't happen all that often, you know, but I know that we could probably get funding for like moms, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, MAD, you know, funding to help support doing that, because I think the kids need to first, you know, see these officers in a different light other than showing up because mom and dad are in a bind or not getting along. But if you start at an early age introducing them to officers in the schools, where if they have a problem at school, hey, go to see the officer, you know, and where he's there as a friend, you know, not anything else to handle anything else. He's there to work with kids, even, you know, if we can get him into the career centers and stuff to talk to people too. But give him the freedom to go to these schools where he's not taking calls. His goal is to educate the children that, you know, cops are not bad. They're good. They're good people, and they're there for you. You know, but it truly starts at home. What we teach our kids at home is what the kids are going to think. But the more you get officers in the face of the children, they're going to pass it on. Hey, this officer's doing this for me at school. He is so cool. You know, and that's kind of the persona I want to get out there with what we're doing to help prevent it before it happens.
What, if anything, do you do about situations where the police are called and really shouldn't be there? It's not a police problem. How do you handle those?
Well, you know, unfortunately, if you're called, you need to go out there. And if you get out there and you find out it's a civil matter you need to file, I mean, educate them, let them know, you know, but do it in a timely manner, you know, because we don't want it to escalate into something that's it's not. But you still need to give them the information as to this is how you can take care of this. There's nothing I can do. I mean, to really explain yourself and let them know, you know, you can handle this, but, you know, it's nothing that I could handle for you.
What should the police be involved at all in formulating legislation, ordinances that are related to crime, based on their experience?
You can have advisory groups, but I don't think that you're there to enforce the laws. I mean, they have people, the community should make up these ordinances or what have you that you're talking about that need to be enforced. It's not don't put it on you got to have the police department here, because it's not really the police department's job. It's a community that should come together and say, this is what we want. Make it a community decision. So leaving out any one identifier or branch, I think it should be the people.
Anything else you'd like to add that we didn't cover?
No, I thought we covered quite a bit here in this little, I guess, interview, and I just appreciate you having me here to talk to you and let you know that I'm believing that this is the right thing, and I'm the right candidate for the job. I have the resume for it, and I think people will see that, I mean what I say. When I'm transparent, I want you to see that, and I'm doing this for the right reasons, bottom line. And we'll make changes. I come from a background of a Marine leadership, and I think some of that will go into the office because that is kind of the way I'm wired nowadays. And it will all be to the betterment of the community. I know that for sure.
What are some of the changes you'll make first?
Well, I don't want to jump out and say I'm making a bunch of changes yet, because my goal would be go in and I want to observe 30 days minimum and see what is going on, and how are we managing things? Are we making good decisions with the time we have, the people we have, the funds we have? So I'm not going to limit myself or put myself on a hook saying I have to do one thing or another right now, but I know I'm going to have a big focus on, I want to make sure that road patrol is out there. I don't ever want to hear that PINS officers aren't being covered when we have people that are paying us to have someone there. I mean, that to me is almost it's concerning as a citizen. So I would want to, how can we make sure this does not happen? So that might be some work in itself to start with.
All right. Well, thanks for taking some of your time today to do the interview, and good luck in the election.
Thank you very much.